Okay, good afternoon and thank you for joining us. Today we have updates from the Lubbock Economic Recovery Task Force, or LERT, regarding guidelines for businesses opening on May 8th. Today's panelists are LERT co-chair Steve Massengale and Robert Taylor, and task force member Dave Marcinkowski. So let's get started with Steve Massengale.
Thank you, Lacey. And before we get, I don't see an indication that we're streaming.
We are now.
Okay. Thank you, Lacey, and thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. The Lubbock Economic Recovery Task Force Committee on Get Lubbock Open met earlier today to discuss the changes that Governor Abbott added to his order yesterday. This modified some things that were previously opened last week, and it also opens some new businesses that people were anxiously awaiting. Those businesses are mostly related to the personal care business, hair, nail, and those types. Quite a bit of pent-up demand for that, and it's a great opportunity for some of these small business owners to get open. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Robert Taylor.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I just want to spend a second as we update what we've got out of the governor's order and as it relates to what we talked about last week. First of all, on restaurants, it's much the same as it was. I do want to point out that 25% occupancy of outdoor seating is not included in the calculations of 25% of seating. So it still has to be 6 feet apart, and all those rules need to be followed. But as far as the total occupancy, that does not account against the 25%. That's just outdoor seating. Also, kind of an update and clarification also is that weddings, memorials, and funerals will be under the guidelines of event centers that are also can be held in churches, which is the 25% occupancy, the 6 feet of distancing. And also, if any food is served, it comes under the same guidelines of restaurants. So really, that part of it's pretty simple, I think, pretty straightforward. With that, I'll turn it over to Dave Marcinkowski to bring you up to date on some other things that were done by the Lubbock group.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. So we've gone through and reviewed Governor Abbott's Executive Order 21. There have been other things that we've added to it. One is not on Governor Abbott's executive order is essential medical. So I think Steve's going to talk here in a minute about the success of the Lubbock Safe program that we've had so far. And from that, we've had a request from essential medical. So groups that were already open prior to any of the governor's orders asked they want to be Lubbock Safe as well. And that includes, essential medical offices and hospitals. And so we created a category that will be a part of the portal that will be updated tomorrow. That essential medical can go on and actually become Lubbock Safe. And some of the guidelines in there are, we're asking for waiting room furniture to be rearranged to encourage social distancing. We're asking for patients to encourage the number of people, to limit the number of people who accompany them. I believe most of these places are essential medical building establishments have already set numbers and what can happen there. And so we're just encouraging to stick with that and be consistent. We're encouraging patients, if they can, call ahead or set an appointment to reduce the number of people that could be in a waiting room. And then if they can as well, stay in their car or outside until they're invited in for their essential medical treatment. We're asking for forehead scan and health surveys, which they're already doing, and then to quarantine if somebody does have, prior to treatment, if somebody does have, passes or fails the health survey or has a temperature over 100 degrees. And then typical things like, utilizing gloves and face masks and face shields and cleaning up and disinfecting, sanitizing their work areas and equipment, which I think are all things they're probably already doing. But we really want these groups because they've asked, more so because they've asked, they want to be a part of the Lubbock Safe program, which I think is just an awesome thing to see as it relates to the success we've had so far in just a very short period of time that we've had Lubbock Safe out there. The other thing I want to talk about is personal care businesses. As the governor mentioned yesterday, things like hair salons, barbershop, hairstylists, nail salons, tanning salons, and the like, things that are licensed cosmetologists or barbers are allowed to open on Friday. And so we have just a handful of things that kind of line up with what the governor asked. I will state in the governor's Open Texas minimum standards book that you can get off of the website, it goes into far more detail as it relates to personal care businesses than what our handful of asks are with our guidelines, which is we're asking that they position workstations in the facility to adhere to social distancing guidelines. We've added the fact that a physical barrier like a cubicle or wall achieves this requirement. We're requiring these businesses to take clients by appointment only, and just for clients to stay in their car until they're invited in for their appointment. We're also encouraging clients to not bring additional people with them for their appointment unless it is absolutely necessary. Obviously, children and our residents, citizens who maybe have special needs are going to require someone to help them get into an appointment, but we're asking for that to be discouraged with everybody who can come in on their own. Employees should use hand sanitizer, wash their hands, and really all of our general guidelines that we talked about last week, as well as all workstations and equipment being cleaned and sanitized between customers. But those are things I think you're going to see in the governor's orders and our general guidelines that we require for all categories, as well as specifically outlined in our personal care business section. With that, Steve, I think I didn't see on our agenda where we're going to talk about public swimming pools. Should I go ahead and cover swimming pools, or are you going to do that?
No, if you go ahead and mention that, Dave, I'd appreciate it.
So the third thing that we'll see added, and this is per the governor's order 21, is public swimming pools. This includes all indoor and outdoor public pools. For the most part, we followed the governor's guidelines and his task force guidelines. For indoor pools, it's a 25% occupancy limit based off the fire marshal rating. Outdoor pools is different. It's a 25% occupancy limit as determined by the operator of the pool. A lot of times the city inspector will set that number, but it'll be 25% of whatever the number that is based off of what the operator of that pool is recommending. We're also asking for all furniture in the pool area to be reconfigured to encourage social distancing and limit groups that come into the size of the individual household or up to 5 individuals. So we're trying to avoid at public pools large groups coming together and having events or anything like that, as well as just being at the pool in large numbers. And so we think those are reasonable asks. With that, Steve, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Dave. Well done. I'd like to talk about an add to our Lubbock Safe guidelines. In Lubbock, we're fortunate to have several large retailers that their facilities are over 100,000 square feet. And they had requested that we add an additional occupancy tier to our Lubbock Safe guidelines so that they can be Lubbock Safe and also accommodate their customers. We believe there's balance there in adding a tier of 500 to those facilities that are over 100,000, excludes their employees. Our guidelines will also read to the effect that those larger retailers that take advantage of this 500 person occupancy have their staff monitor those areas in the store that would likely get congested. It might be say in a large retailer, the area that sells cheese and eggs or meat, make sure that we're we make sure that their staff is keeping their customers safe and socially distanced. One thing we wanted to clarify today that's part of the governor's order is not in this phase of opening are the following categories of businesses. First off would be gyms. Gyms have been identified by the governor to open on May 18th. What remains closed without a date certain for opening right now is bars, tattoo and piercing studios, video arcades, amusement parks, water parks, and splash pads. So right now, as we talk about Lubbock Safe, I want to review where we are with businesses that have certified themselves. This morning, we had almost 1,600 applications started. Of those, 459 have been certified as Lubbock Safe businesses. we anticipate that there will be another dramatic increase in applications for Lubbock Safe businesses as this new wave of businesses open on May 8th. So to apply to become certified with Lubbock Safe, you'll go to the City of Lubbock's website and click on the COVID-19 tab, and you'll see the information there, resources, and many other options there to help you become educated and start the process on becoming certified for Lubbock Safe. We're still very proud of the program. We feel like it's a higher standard, and it fits right in with how Lubbock and our community has worked so well together to fight off the COVID-19 virus. The key to that is three things: keep your social distancing, wear your masks, and washing your hands, which I think we all continue to do a good job with. So with that, if those that have blocked their video will unblock. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Lacey for Q&A.
Thank you, Councilman. We will open it up for media questions, and for today, please use the raise your hand feature. Y'all must have covered it really good. There's no questions right now. Oh, we got one. Okay, Matt Dotre with the Avalanche Journal.
All right, I'll ask a question. Hey, everyone. Okay, so just to make sure I have it correctly. So these personal service businesses, they can sign up for Lubbock Safe, and they can sign up now is what it sounds like?
Starting tomorrow morning. We should have the site adjusted to add these businesses in by tomorrow morning.
Okay, and those handful of asks that Dave talked about, those are the requirements? Positioning the work area 6 feet away, by appointment only, not bringing in additional people. Those are the requirements for the Lubbock Safe?
Yeah, making sure their stations are socially distanced. Some of those, some of those businesses have separate rooms where they conduct their work, and those would be more than adequate. Some are in a large room with many technicians in one room. If they're not socially distanced, then they might have to skip every other chair or something like that.
Right. So, I mean, but in some of those, like, cutting someone's hair, social distancing is impossible. Same with, doing someone's nails. So, like, can you talk about the importance of wearing a mask and wearing gloves and checking temperatures? I mean, I'm assuming it's far more important now in those businesses than it has been, right?
Real quick, before we get into that, I mean, it's important to note that there's a general health and safety guidelines for every category. And in that section, Matt, there's a whole litany of things that we're asking them to do with employees, which includes checking their temperature, health surveys, signage encouraging masks, employees wearing masks. I will tell you, if we adopted exactly what the governor had in their guidance, which I would encourage, obviously, all personal care businesses to look at, it would have had about 20 additional things on there that I think are relevant. But I do think in kind of a general sense, our general guidelines covers all those things. And so I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dave. All things in our general conditions that apply to general health apply to all industries. And as we generated these guidelines, we worked with many of the business owners in that industry. And I don't know that I visited with one of them that didn't understand that both technician and client needs to be in a mask all the time.
Okay, we have a question from Melanie Camacho from KCBD.
Hello. So my question is, you kind of touched on it, but I want to touch on it a little more. Massage parlors and tattoo shops, they are now not allowed to open according to the governor, but can they open here in Lubbock if they're following guidelines, or are you guys just kind of, strictly listening to the governor here? Can we get some clarification on that?
Sure, Melanie. We don't have authority outside the governor's order at this point in time, so we can't be more restrictive than what the governor's doing. We would wait for the governor's to I guess, release a subsequent order that at what time would open those businesses. But right now, those businesses cannot be open.
Oh, did someone else have something to say?
I was just going to say, and those are specifically outlined in the Lubbock Safe guidelines as groups that are considered going to be phase 2 or beyond.
Got it. I'm curious, as a task force, what is your biggest request from the public? What's a main question you're getting from the public that you guys are trying to tackle?
Well, I can answer that now if Robert has anything to add, but I can tell you up to this point, this week, the most questions I've gotten have been about personal care industry and at what point in time when we thought it would be open. So I think this will relieve, opening these types of businesses Friday will relieve a lot of angst as it relates to business owners and their customers. I think there's a few people out there wanting to get a haircut.
And my last question is, you guys kind of touched on this in the beginning, but what's your response to this recent executive order? Are you guys in agreement with how fast it's moving? Do you wish it was moving faster? Because I know you guys had some disagreements with like the first executive order. So, you know, what's the overall opinion on this most recent executive order?
Robert, you want to start on that?
Let me start. I think, first of all, I think we weren't in disagreement necessarily with the first order. What we were, we looked at it and already had our work done to be a little more aggressive on letting some more businesses open. I think this last order brought the majority of those into that fold. We also had some other restrictions that we would like to see followed so we could make sure that we are safe, and that therefore was born the Lubbock Safe program. So I think that really highlights what we would have done a little bit different. I think in many regards, this last order of the governor included our main points that we want to make sure were included. And we got some clarifications, and I think the big thing for us also was we got graduation, the green light to do outdoor graduations for our students. So really, I guess that's summation. I wouldn't call it disagreement, but just a different approach.
Yeah, I would add that we appreciate the governor clarifying some things. Last week, I guess there was a few points in there that we felt like was vague. I'm very grateful that he's opened up a large portion of our small businesses that there's quite a bit of pent-up demand, and I think the operators of these businesses understand how to protect themselves, their staff, and their customers, and I think they'll do a good job with it. The other thing that I think is valuable about what the governor did in his most recent order is that he gave us some future-looking dates, I guess I would say. At least now we know where we are with gyms, rather than wondering at what point in time an industry that's very significant and affects a lot of people will open. So now we know that date, and we can work with those businesses to become Lubbock Safe certified as they open.
Okay, do we have any more media questions? Okay, we got Matt Dotragan.
Hey everyone, will public pools be open on Friday?
Are you referring to city pools, Matt?
Yeah, city pools.
Actually, city pools, I don't think we open until the Memorial Day weekend traditionally. The city managers made some decisions as far as short-term budget adjustments, and right now those are included in that. So that'll be something that at some point before the end of the month, I assume the city manager will visit with the council about.
Okay.
Yeah, man, I think that also kind of begs a response. The governor, I think, covered it fairly well when he talked about all of these come out. These are really guidelines as far as opening. There is nothing in there that says that any owner should feel the obligation to open in any business. And I think that really is true in pools, because if the owner of the pool does not feel like it's safe, if it's unsupervised, if there's distancing problems, if they don't feel like it's a safe environment, they certainly have the right and in some cases obligations to not open.
Anything else, Matt?
No, I think I'm good. So, and I guess, sorry, I'm going to ask for one more clarification. Robert, you said that weddings and funerals can take place inside churches so long as those churches are at 25% occupancy. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, that is correct. Also, it wasn't just churches, but it was any event type center that would house these type of gatherings.
Okay.
They have to qualify under the guidelines of the 6-foot spacing as well as the 25% total occupancy. And the only other caveat is if there are any refreshments or food served, it comes with the same restrictions that a restaurant would come under.
Okay. Very good. Yeah, that's all the questions I have. Thanks everyone for your time.
Let me just add on to that real quick, Matt. Just a question as it applies to event centers. The activities that can be in those event centers are limited to what's identified in the governor's order. Does that make sense?
Again?
So for an event center to open up, it has to be limited to those activities identified in the governor's order.
Okay. And those activities are weddings and funerals.
Yeah, it identified.
Yeah, it's identified as wedding, funerals, or memorials.
That's right. That's correct.
Okay. So like concerts can't take place. I'm trying to think of what event centers do.
Yeah, I don't believe a concert would be allowed at this point.
Okay.
And I would say some event centers are used for business conventions and such as that, which are
right. Okay.
Okay, if that's all the questions we have, we'll wrap this up unless the panelists have anything to add.
Nope. Good job, everybody.
Okay, well, that concludes our news conference. We'll see you back here in the morning at 11:30 for the city's regularly scheduled news conference. Remember, for all resources, you can go to mylubbock.us/COVID-19, or for businesses, mylubbock.us/LubbockSafe. We'll see you tomorrow.
And such as that, which are
Right. Okay.
Okay, if that's all the questions we have, we'll wrap this up unless the panelists have anything to add.
Nope. Good job, everybody.
Okay, well, that concludes our news conference. We'll see you back here in the morning at 11:30 for the city's regularly scheduled news conference. Remember, for all resources, you can go to mylubbock.us/COVID-19, or for businesses, mylubbock.us/LubbockSafe. We'll see you tomorrow.